I'm Blake Newsom, Dean of Chapel at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and we're here today for our installment of NOBTS Conversations with Dr. Eric Hankins, the pastor of First Baptist Church, Oxford, Mississippi, where I heard they have a college and maybe even a football team.
Little program, that's right.
It's good to have you here, Eric. Appreciate you spending some time with us, talking about some things. So let's get right to it. I want to ask you, first off, kind of the last couple of years, you've been involved in the dialogue discussion about Calvinism in the Southern Baptist Convention, wrote the article, the document about the traditional stance as far as Baptists are concerned, and served on the SBC Advisory Committee concerning Calvinism. Just reading the documents and blogs and all of that, I understand that at times it's been sort of vitriolic towards you. I'm sure you've also experienced some friendly conversation. So I just wanted to get your take on kind of where we are in the Southern Baptist Convention right now. What's the relationship like? You have a really good perspective on this, good insight. So talk to us about that, the relationships that are out there, and can we coexist and work together as a convention?
Great, great. My short answer is yes, we can coexist and work together. And through some meetings with the Calvinism Advisory Committee over the last year, we're really able to hammer out precisely that while we have real and distinct differences on the issue of Calvinism and non-Calvinism, those are not reasons not to fellowship and work together. And so from the very beginning, for me, it has been an old Reformation principle that says in essentials, unity, in disputable matters, liberty, and in all things, charity. And so that, I think, is the correct position. And I got involved in this discussion because I felt like that Reformation principle was in trouble. That there was a loss of liberty granted, and I felt like that loss of liberty was in the direction of non-Calvinists, that we were deficient, that we were the reason why the SBC was in decline, that historic Baptist position of non-Calvinism, and it is a historic Baptist position, I began to feel like in the discussion that that was an aberration, that it was problematic, that it was the reason why we were in trouble, and that I was not going to be granted liberty to hold that position. And then also the loss of charity, that it had become ugly and mean-spirited. And so for those reasons, I thought it was good to craft what a non-Calvinist position in Southern Baptist life would look like, because I'm also not an Arminian. I think most Baptists are neither Calvinist nor Arminian. So I crafted that out, and really the arc that runs is from the traditional statement that I proposed all the way to the truth, trust, and testimony in a time of tension that I helped write. And so if it began with that, it sort of has in some ways concluded or been brought to I think a consensus in that document that says we have real differences, we don't believe the same things. I think one of the things we need to stop saying is, well, we all basically believe the same thing. No, we don't. We don't. But we are going to grant one another liberty because we don't think those things are essential in order to be orthodox. Yeah. As Adam Harwood, my friend, has shared, a good distinction is that Calvinism is orthodox, but it's not orthodoxy. It's not coterminous with orthodoxy. Mm-hmm. Non-Calvinism, or traditionalism, or whatever you want to call it, is orthodox. It's not orthodoxy. And so we're going to grant each other freedom in those things.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, so growing up in the convention, kind of convention life, denominational life, and now these last couple of years, particularly being heavily involved in convention life, we're seeing sort of the younger members of the SBC not getting as involved in the convention denominational life. So what is sort of your case? How would you plead the case for the younger guys, younger ministers, to be more involved, to get involved in denominational life, to engage, go to convention, different things like that? How would you state your case on the need for young guys to be involved in the convention?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say essentially that there's a biblical principle that we can do more together than we can separately. That cooperation is biblical, and I think Southern Baptists have demonstrated over a century and a half or so the power of cooperation. We have done more together, a lot more together, than we've done individually. And so I think that there's some things I would challenge young guys on. One is a criticism, I think, of the generation that's coming up. I read a great blog on something called missional narcissism. This idea among millennials that if they're not living some adventure on a mountaintop in Tibet, then they've wasted their lives. And this sense that there's only, that we're sort of lone ranger out in the middle of nowhere, doing it on our own, and almost that cooperating is a sign of weakness or is a sign of a lack of faith or slows you down. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Cooperation actually speeds you up. It allows you to stand on the shoulders of giants. And so I would say to guys to watch out for that. And I even think there's some bad theology in there. That it's kind of about me. If I'm not doing something that I can blog about that would get retweeted, then it's not good. When the clear sense is faithfulness in small things leads to faithfulness in large things. That's a biblical principle, that you take your seat at the foot and then you're asked at the proper time to be at the head. So I would say to young guys, everybody has to participate as a young guy and be faithful in those small things in order to be asked to move up. I also think there's just a love for youth in our culture, that old people are kind of dumb and bad and young people are cool and awesome, and so we don't need to have a respect for those that have more experience than us. And so I would offer some of those criticisms for the guys to be self-critical. I just think there's a cultural anti-organization. There's just, I think it's anti-denominational. Yeah. I think that propensity to think that organizations are bad. At the same time, I would say to the young guys, we desperately need you to engage the process for all of the right reasons you're criticizing the organization. They can become heavy, slow, trapped in the past, slow to change, unwilling to make hard choices. We live in a culture that's moving faster than any other culture in history, and it's hard to keep up. And so sometimes when things are changing fast, there's a retrenchment in organizations. They're afraid, they don't know what to do, we might fail. And so there's got to be an infusion from the young guys. And I would say to them, because I know this experience as a young guy as well, is it's frustrating when it seems like a good old boy system, or no one ever invites you to have a place at the table, even at the foot, to tell a guy you got to wait 25 years for your turn to be engaged in denominational life. I think denominations need to hear you have got to be working to engage that generation. Yeah. They bring a tremendous, as all young generations do, a tremendous energy, insight, and they're the future.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Some concerns and also some encouragements there.
And I think the other thing is the young guys need to decide, young guys need to investigate what they're criticizing. Mm-hmm. Don't read 2 blogs about how bad the convention is or how rotten state conventions are because somebody said that. Yeah. Go to some conventions, ask some questions, and investigate whether or not what you've heard on a blog is really true. Mm-hmm. And then I would say to the denominational agencies, tell your story. For instance, tell the story of Baptist Student Union work that reaches more college students than the ones we know of, Crusade and these others that are great program, but I mean vastly outdistances those organizations. Yeah. And that's just one thing. And then you can go on and on talking about IMB and North American Mission Board, and the list just goes on and on and on and on. Yeah. And then the final thing that I would say is, let's say we got rid of the denomination. We got rid of associations, state conventions, national convention. What would we replace it with? And when these guys sit down and start talking, guess what they describe? What we already have. Yeah. A way to get together at various levels to cooperate to do work. And so the problem is not the system. Sometimes the problem is personnel. Sometimes the problem is vision, which all organizations, when they start to fall behind, there may need to be changes in terms of who's giving leadership or making sure everybody's pulling towards the mission. But the problem is not having an organization. The solution is not destroying the organization, because you would replace it with something that's identical to what we have now.
Some sort of organization. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I really like the point about doing your research. I think because of the information saturation that we have, you can read one blog and think you know everything. So that's good to investigate, to engage, to inquire, so that you learn more about it. All right. Well, we'll wrap up with this final question for you. Having pastored a number of years and I've been to seminary, and just through the process, you have some life and ministry experience. So, what would be your advice to a young pastor, young seminary student looking to pastor? What would be that nugget of advice? Maybe something that you've experienced yourself, kind of a life lesson, if you will.
Spend an hour a day with the Lord. My great regret in 25 years of ministry is not spending an adequate amount of time with the Lord every day. And I've tried to cultivate that and learn the discipline of what it takes to spend an hour a day with the Lord. But if you'll do that, now, there's a lot of other in seminary, and you learn all of those other things. But I think when you really study men and women who changed the world, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different skill sets. Some were great orators, some great organizers, some just had boundless energy, all kinds of different skill sets. But one thing is the constant. I try to keep in my mind what Martin Luther said on a day in which he was particularly busy. He said, I have so much to do today, I better spend 2 hours in prayer instead of 1. I don't think like that, okay? And we tend to not think, I'm so busy today, I'll just have to do my quiet time tomorrow. So that really, if they'll do that and just carve that out and insist on that, then out of the overflow of that, preaching, ministry, leading their families, there'll be the life flow for that.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good word. Appreciate your time here. Thank you for what you've been doing lately in the denomination. We appreciate you sort of sparking the conversation. We need to have this conversation. We thank you for that. Hang in there, brother.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for your service also in Oxford.
It's been great.